Thank you guys for showing up. I'm so stoked to see many of you coming in from different parts of the world. What's up, Twyla? What's up, Tara? And of course, we always have our friend Julie. You're watching from the UK. You're the late night girl. You're always like, it's so late here. So thank you guys for joining us. Miss Zombie Angel, I've seen you every day this week. You are a rock star. Thank you for being here. So to get us started, I want to ask you guys a couple questions. If you find yourself lost in thought throughout the day, type me into the chats. If you find that you are often creating the worst case scenario with the thoughts that are going through your head on a daily basis, type me into the chats. If you then get super upset with yourself because you know better than to create the worst case scenario in your head, and then you beat yourself up for thinking these negative thoughts, type me into the chat. And if you've even read a ton of books, gone to seminars, taken trainings on how to get rid of these evil, terrible thoughts that happen up here, and they still seem to keep creeping into your head, type me into the chat. And I'm seeing me. Guess what? I know it's you, because it's all of us, guys, and me included. These are things that I've struggled with myself for so long. When I was 17 years old, I took this philosophy class in high school, and it was the first step into this exploration of the human mind and the human psyche, and it really spawned me into this whole exploration of even like the self-help world. I think I bought my first self-help book. It was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I bought that when I was like 18 years old and just loved it. It was like doing meditations and all this stuff. Yeah, Kelly, me dog. So it started so long ago that I really started to try to study what happens up here and how to get better control over it. And it seemed like the more that I learned, the more that this thing would get active, and the more I would analyze what I was thinking and what I was doing all the time. And like a lot of you said, and the me's, we almost start to beat ourselves up more the more that we know that we could be doing and that we should, careful of that word, don't should on yourself. That's what my coach always used to tell me. But we start to beat ourselves up because we kind of know better than to let this thing go crazy. So what I'm going to share with you today is hopefully things that I've learned, things that I've worked with my clients in my coaching practice that I feel like have been super helpful, that I'm really hoping are going to help you to get control over this guy up here, get more embodied into this, into the body. And the steps are really pretty clear and concise, which is first, we have to create awareness and acceptance of what we naturally go through. Next, we have to start getting this thing to quiet down so we can start to tune in through all of this intelligence. And then we have to start creating new maps for ourselves so that in the future, this thing doesn't take over and just create these spinning stories that we all, because I saw the me's in the chats, I know you're with me. We're going to talk about how do we start to tell this what to think instead of just being subject to what it's been thinking forever. So if you're stoked on that, write stoked into the chat and we'll get going. I want you guys to write stoked because I say that word way too much. So let's first talk about the idea of awareness and acceptance. So this is the most essential part to this entire program. This first moment that we're going to talk about, if you do nothing else, if you learn nothing else, if you tune in for the next 3 minutes, this is the part you have to pay attention to. Because the reason that the cycle happens, the reason that this looping process happens of, I think I have it under control. I don't have it under control. Now I feel bad about it. Now I'm going to beat myself up about it. It's because we have not come to a place of acceptance. So first we become aware of the thought process, aware of the patterns that we're going through, but then we have to get into acceptance. And let's really be clear about one thing. Acceptance does not mean approval. Really take that in. Acceptance is not the same thing as approval. So we're not being approving of this thing getting out of control. We're accepting that that's something that happens naturally as human beings. And I think what you'll find is when you get into a place where you let go of the judgment of yourself because you know better, you let go of the judgment of yourself because you did have some bad thoughts that day. Oh my gosh, did I just screw up the secret? Oh no. Michelle knows what I'm talking about with that statement. But if we let go of the beat up and the judgments and all these things and just say, oh yeah, that's what the human mind does. It tells stories. It goes through the same stories over and over and over again. Then we get to this place where we start to feel like, oh, okay, I'm just human again. And in that space, that's where we can start to shift things. And I'm telling you this from very specific experience with my coaching clients and with myself, because very often when we start a coaching conversation, what happens is the energy's way up here and there's this should and this kind of frustration with what's happening. And when we're up here, we're stuck up here. So let me get you into a little bit of kind of neuroscience-y stuff. So I'm going to draw a really terrible diagram of the brain here. So here's kind of the brain stem, and then it kind of goes like this, and then there. That's kind of what your brain's shaped like. This is your brain on drugs, by the way. So within the brain, we have two kind of major separate pieces in a way. So we have this area up front, which is actually a very small piece. It's the most recent evolution to the human brain. This is called the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is the separating piece between us and kind of the animal kingdom, because the animal kingdom mainly is just made up of this, which is more the primitive part of our brain, which really runs kind of more on pattern, sort of runs on its own. So back here, we've kind of got our subconscious, we've got our memories, we have all those things. And down deep in here, we have this stuff called the basal ganglia. It sounds like a heavy metal band, right? The basal ganglia. So the basal ganglia, what happens there is just pattern. And these patterns have been built for you over time through the education that you've received, the mentoring you've received, experiences that you've had. It's basically dug these maps into that part of your brain. 90% of your day, up to 90% of your day, if you, depending on what you read, they'll say as low as 70%, as much as 90%. I love you too, Sarah. Twyla, I'm glad you're laughing because this is a terrible drawing, but 70 to 90% of your day happens here. So 70 to 90% of your day is just pattern. Soak that in. There's a small portion of your day that the prefrontal cortex kicks in, and it makes a conscious decision to do something different, say something different, and it has the most tiny little moment to make that decision before all of this stuff kicks back in. And this is so important because this is the natural part. This is the part where you can let go of the guilt. You can let go of this, oh, I should know better because I've been studying the mind. I've been, guys, I've been a coach for 11 years studying this stuff, and I still struggle with it, okay? So this is where we can understand that it's just pattern. And if you don't consciously make a different decision, it will always just go back to pattern. This huge part of our brain uses tiny little bits of energy. It requires so little energy for it to operate. This guy up here, the prefrontal cortex, that takes tons of energy to operate. So now you can understand why the brain, which is really all about protection, self-preservation, it's really just this machine for trying to keep you alive and surviving. So you can see why this part of the brain would really operate most of the time so that you're not spending so much energy. So I know that all of you that are watching, because I know quite a few of you, when you've been in an all-day classroom where you're learning something new, notice what you feel at the end of that day. You might feel kind of jazzed up because you learned something new, but think back to that. Recognize that almost like kind of brain dead feel, and it kind of happens right here, which, by the way, guess what part of your brain alcohol affects? The prefrontal cortex. It's the decision making. It's our right and wrong, good or bad decision maker. And alcohol numbs that. How many of you, right in the chat, have made a stupid decision when you've had a little too much alcohol? Me. So you can see why this is so important to understand, because it really helps you to understand that it's just normal. Yeah, Jessica, it's kind of like you get almost that headache, like that little thing in the front of your head that it's like, okay, too much. I can't handle anymore. You're probably exhausted, like Twyla's saying. You're probably even hungry. Bree says, that's why I don't drink anymore. Carlo's like, yes, I've done it before. Yeah. Okay, Honor, I know you're laughing, but you're laughing because you get it. I get it. Elizabeth, that's why she's sober as well. Might need to take some lessons from Bree and Elizabeth, y'all. So anyway, that's a little neuroscience lesson for you, and hopefully that even starts to take a little bit of pressure off yourself to understand that this is just normal. This is how the brain works. So once we start to get into that state of acceptance, then we start to become aware of our thoughts. And I love the way that Eckhart Tolle puts this, and it's actually a very Buddhist principle. We become the observer of our thoughts. What's so important about how that is placed is you don't become your thoughts. You are not the thoughts. And even for Eckhart Tolle and the Buddhists, you're not even the thinker necessarily. You become the observer of the thoughts. So just try this for a second. Just close your eyes for a moment and just take yourself almost out of your body, like you're kind of hovering above your head, your brain inside your skull, and start to just observe what is coming through your mind. I'm going to shut up for about 10, 15 seconds, and I want you to just, no judgment, no purpose at all, just sit and observe from the outside looking in. Just be the observer of those thoughts. Just 10, 15 seconds. I'm going to shut up. So in that moment, you probably had a few seconds where you're like, wait, nothing's going through my head. But you probably noticed you started telling yourself, wait, nothing's going through my head. What am I thinking about? Should I be thinking something? So the little voice starts to happen. So just do me a favor in the chats, just type into the chat, what did you recognize as you took the opportunity to take yourself out and just be in the observer of your experience? Sarah, I see you get anxious when you cut hair sometimes. Yeah, so many of us, our livelihood depends on that craft that we do. And I think that by going through some of these practices today, Sarah, I think you'll start to see some things that can serve you. Patricia, gratefulness, good. Jen says someone farted beside her. That's very distracting. Katie's getting hungry. Jenna Beth was saying it was kind of hard to find. Good, awesome. Miss Zombie Angel, sound of her breath started to come in. The mind ticks away, Jessica. Yeah, Katie sings scrambled. Carla was saying, I recognized that I was thinking of the right things to think about. Awesome. So this is great because these are the things we can start to become aware of. And again, if you remove yourself from the judgment of that observation, it just becomes, I'm here to just look at it. Yeah, Christy, it's hard to think nothing, and that shouldn't ever be your purpose. Even in the best, deepest Buddhist meditation classes, they tell you the purpose is not to stop thinking. That's actually not the purpose, is to stop the thinking. It's to become the observer of the thinking. That's one of the biggest misconceptions about meditation in general, is that people think that it should be quiet up here, and that's not necessarily the purpose of it. You might find yourself eventually getting to a place that this does become much more quiet, but that shouldn't be the initial purpose of why you go into meditation. So once we start to become aware, once we start to let go of that judgment and just be like, okay, I accept the fact that that's what this thing does. And by the way, the whole purpose of all those stories, it's the main purpose of your brain. It's to protect you. That is what it's trying to do. The brain requires a beginning, a middle, and an end so that it can create the loop of the story, so that it can think about, oh, okay, if I know how this happened, I know what's happening now, I know what's going to happen next, then I can protect myself. So that's why it's always creating these stories. It's just to create the story so that it knows how to protect itself. That's it. So it's trying to serve you. You can thank this guy up here, this girl up here, this it up here. You can thank it for doing its job. The next step is to start to get control over it now. Because now we have awareness, we have acceptance, we're in flow with it. We're like, okay, cool, brain, you're doing your thing up there. Yes, Bree, good point. So once we get to that place, now we can actually start to influence how we create our focus. So if you've been, kind of on any of my other education before, if you've been watching my Instagram or any of my social channels, you'll have probably heard me talk about the multiple brain intelligence. So multiple brain intelligence talks about the fact that there are different intelligences through the body. We're all super familiar with this because it's the thing that we use most of the time. The head brain up here, the head brain is really our source of analytical thought. It can also be a very creative space. And again, I love how Eckhart Tolle talks about the brain, the mind, because he says it can be one of our greatest resources, but it can also, when it gets out of control, it can turn into almost a disease. Eckhart Tolle says that thinking has become a disease to our society because we've been taught to be so up here all the time. So what we can do to start to quiet it is we can get control over our autonomic nervous system, and then we can direct our attention to different intelligence. So good, Sarah. That's a great acknowledgement of something that is going through the mind. So try your best not to judge it, because again, it's in support of you in some weird way. So here's the thing is, if autonomic nervous system, that's where I was going. So within our nervous system, we have this kind of center line. On one side of the nervous system, we have our sympathetic. On the other side, we have the parasympathetic. Ran out of space, so that one's going to, oh, you guys can't even read that, can you? Let's do that one more time. I'm sorry. That'll give me a chance to actually write it properly. So para, not Tara Dudley, parasympathetic. So this side, sympathetic, is where we get highly activated. It's our kind of fight, flight, freeze, appease kind of energy. This side is more that super deeply meditative kind of state. It's right before you go to sleep at night. It's right when you wake up. Someone, I remember, I apologize, I didn't take note, but someone mentioned that theta mind state. That's where you're at right as you're about to fall asleep, right as you're starting to wake up. You're kind of going from that theta state into the waking state. And so it's a really beautiful place to tap into subconscious. Parasympathetic is not necessarily a great state to be if you are trying to be conscious and trying to work through your day. So what our body naturally does, if we are in a natural state, which natural is calm, but alert, calm, alert, calm, it's not this. It's not actually just staying centered. So the nervous system is always going like this. And one of the things that is directing it is the breath. You have these things in your throat called baroreceptors. The breath triggers the baroreceptors to take the body in and out of parasympathetic and sympathetic. The in-breath triggers us into sympathetic. So if you think about this, try this with me, guys. Take a long, deep in-breath. And then just let it out. Take a long, deep in-breath. Let it out. Long, deep in-breath. Let it out. You're probably noticing you're kind of getting a little like, because we're focusing the breath longer in the in the sympathetic state. It's that in-breath that triggers that portion of the baroreceptors to tell the autonomic nervous system to kind of charge up. If you could feel it, say, I feel it in the chat. Now do the opposite. Take a kind of not like a fast in-breath, but just take a kind of natural in-breath and then let it out super slow. Take another natural in-breath. Let it out super slow. Another natural in-breath. Let it out super slow. Yeah, that one I like a lot. And this is a great tool. It's called parasympathetic breath, because that long extended out breath starts to trigger the body into that more parasympathetic, ooh, I'm chilling out kind of state. So guys, if you are having a tough day, if you feel like you're starting to get anxious, all that stuff, yeah, Sarah, I do have wings right now. If you're feeling that anxiousness start to come in, switch into that parasympathetic breathing pattern, which is that kind of nice natural in-breath, and then just really extend that out breath. Jessica, good. You're noticing that you start to feel calmer with that. So normally throughout the day, what our body will naturally do, if you are in just a nice natural flow, which is peaceful, calm, alert, your body is in this state, which we would call balanced or coherent. Okay, balanced or coherent. So the way you get yourself into balance or coherence is an even count in and an even count out. You're welcome, Sarah. You're welcome, Christy. So try that with me, guys. Just start to take notice of your breath and try to balance, get in harmony, the in-breath and the out-breath. So just that in-breath and the out-breath. Just could be 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, could be 5 seconds. What we've discovered is to get the body into the deepest state of coherence, somewhere in between 5 and 6 seconds. Yes, Julie, it's a great exercise before you go to sleep. And Patricia, you even mentioned that sleep can be a problem for you. So that parasympathetic breath, really focusing on that exhale, could potentially help you. And I say could because I'm not going to make any claims that it will, but try it. It could help. So with that balanced breath in and that balanced breath out, what you should notice is that the body just starts to feel like, okay, yeah, I'm calm, but I'm very present. What you'll also notice is that it will probably start to slow this thing down. because this is that next step. We've gotten into acceptance. We're aware that the mind is kind of starting to take its own path. But if you even count in, even count out, and really focus in on that breathing pattern, it will slow this down, because it gets you out of the hyper, fight, flight, freeze, appease. It gets you out of, oh, my brain diagram's gone, but it's going to get you out of that primitive brain, because that's what happens when we get into here, when we get into sympathetic, it gets us into primitive head brain, because the purpose is to preserve ourselves. The purpose is to survive. So that's super important, because if we're highly sympathetic, it's very hard to get the prefrontal cortex, which is the valuable and intelligent part of our brain, to say, okay, everything's okay. No, we don't have to get sucked into the story right now. We can just be present. So that helps to start to calm this and allow us to use the better part of our brain, which is that, well, not better, but the more controllable part of our brain, which is that prefrontal cortex. And it also allows us to start to settle into the body. That should be the other thing that you started to notice as you started to focus on the breath, is more of your attention, more of your focus got into the body. So as we talk about the multiple brain intelligences, this, yes, is a brain. We know that. But guess what? We know for a fact, neuroscience proven now, that your heart is a brain. It has the same kind of neurological structure. It has the same neuroplasticity, and it has the same ability to work on its own as the head brain does. If you think about what this might bring to us as far as intelligence, you innately already know. What do you think our heart does for us? What kind of intelligence does it bring to us? Pop it into the chat. What kinds of intelligence do you think the heart brings to us? I have a feeling you know exactly what it is. Type that into the chat. Take my wings away for a minute. Yeah, great, Twyla. You're saying emotional intelligence. There's lots of books talking about emotional intelligence. Julie, yes, that sense of love. John, it can definitely be a sense of joy. Sarah, 100%. It is part of keeping us alive, for sure. Emotion, yes, love, giving, receiving, gratitude, empathy. It's also your source for your deep sense of core values. So when you start to sense something, this is a great way to put it. Sometimes we say, well, I don't think that's a good idea. The words we use can also give us a clue to what we might be tapping into. Yeah, Carlo, compassion, joy, peace, Jessica, happiness can definitely be something we see in the heart. So in the head, we start to say, well, I don't think that's a great idea. That's telling us that we are probably in an analytical process with our decision making. If we're like, I don't know, I'm not feeling like that's a good idea, that might be more heart intelligence talking to us, because it might be something that's challenging your set of core values. Then we drop down into the belly. So in the belly, this is our sense of deep self. This is also our sense of motivation. It's also our sense of intuition, typically starts to come in through the belly. So when we think about gut intelligence, when we think about using your gut, what are you typically talking about? Type that into the chat. Yeah, Katie, solar plexus. Remember a quote someone said, I heart you. Yes, that's awesome. So in the belly, like I said, I already gave you all the answers, didn't I? Oops, sorry. Pop quiz is over. But the belly is that deep sense of self-identity, like you said, Twyla, there, instinct, intuition. Yeah, Jen, perfect. I have a gut feeling about this. Something doesn't feel good in my belly about this situation. So a lot of times that's going to be self-preservation coming up. Like, Guys, I'm sure you've experienced this. You're walking down the street somewhere, and just all of a sudden, you kind of get this little thing. You're like, I don't like this. I don't feel good about this street I'm walking down, or I don't feel good about this corner that I'm about to go to. Or if any of you that had a car accident before, I have had two. And right before, Tara, spidey senses. My spidey senses kicked in, and I kind of knew it was about to happen. And you feel that drop in your belly. Yeah, Jessica, feeling sick to your stomach, not in your stomach, Tara. Perfect. So you guys are getting it. That's the proof that there is more to our intelligence than this. What has happened to us is we have been taught, use your head. Don't be so emotional about this. Be logical about it. So many things have gotten us stuck up here. And so, of course, the head has just turned into this thinking machine, this kind of thinking monster, and we ignore the intelligence of the heart. Now, I know that there are some of you out there that might actually be very heart thinkers, and even that couldn't get you into trouble, because using any intelligence without the others included gets us out of balance, it gets us out of whack. So a big part of getting this thing to quiet down and start to really connect to a different kind of intelligence is about getting back into the body. The word embodied has become so big, has become a word that you hear everywhere right now. And there's an important part of why that has become such an important word. And it's because this body that we have brings so much to us, but we've been pulled so far out of it. So if this is making sense, just pop in, this makes sense, into the chat. Yeah, Carlo, for sure. We are 100% whole, and we only use or are taught to use only 5 of our senses. This is so true, my friend. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Patricia, we are complicated, beautiful beings for sure. I cut hair and I'm like, I did that. Yeah, that's such a perfect example, especially of that kind of patterning and stuff too, because we get into these states where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just flowing, I'm in the flow, I'm getting it done. Yes, for sure. Great. So this is making sense. Bree Bird, you're a breathwork facilitator. Yes, awesome. Yeah, that I have to give credit to the Zambia crew here, because this was something that we decided to do, this Wellness Wednesday kind of content, right at the beginning of when things started to get shut down, and we felt like it was such an important thing to keep on this platform, because as hairdressers, we have busy, crazy lives. We have pretty complicated jobs, and we are one of the few industries that directly absorbs through touch other people's energy. So we have to take care of ourselves, right? Yeah, Miss Zombie Angel, perfect. I had to stop drinking to get all these intelligences to sync up together. Any kind of numbing agent definitely is going to make it much harder to tap into any intelligences within the body. Yes, for sure. So let's do this together. Love you too, Earl. You're my boy. So let's do this together. Let's do just a quick, I'm going to take you through just a 3 to 4 minute little just breath pattern. We're going to just tap into the intelligences real quick. And I do have other places that I'll talk to you about that we can go deeper into this, but I want to give you just a touch of this. So Honor, you don't know how you've missed all these Wellness Wednesdays? Don't worry, we have a whole playlist, so you can go back and watch them, my friend. So once again, let's just start to focus on the breath. Just start to focus on the breath coming in and the breath coming out. Here's what's really key with breath work. Don't force it. It's so valuable to just find the natural flow of your breath. So just start to take notice of the breath coming in, start to take notice of the breath coming back out, and just tap into how it's coming in and how it's flowing back out. Notice if there's any tightness to the breath. Notice if there's anywhere that it starts to feel blocked or shielded, and don't try to fix anything right now. Just take notice of it. Just bring that awareness and acceptance to it. No judgment to it at all. Just start to notice it coming in and heading back out. And like I said, try to start to find that nice, harmonious pace of in-breath and out-breath. In-breath and out-breath. And see if you can get it into that 4 to 6 seconds, whatever feels natural. That's what's really key again, is make sure it feels natural. Just allow that flow in and allow that flow out. Katie, good. This is good for you then, to just kind of bring some focus back into that breath. So once you start to feel a nice natural flow, start to feel that even pace flowing through, just start to bring your focus right into your chest, into your heart. And in that space, just start to notice any kind of empathetic or compassionate, caring. Maybe it's something that you're just really grateful for today, someone that you're grateful for. Maybe it's someone that you feel really deeply connected to. Might even just be connection to yourself. And just really start to take notice and bring all your focus and awareness into that sensation. Just really sense that awesome, grateful, compassionate, empathetic heart that you have in your chest. Then start to allow the focus to drop down into your belly, just deep down inside. Imagine there's this big bowl of just space within your belly, and drop your focus down into the belly. Allow the breath to really fill the belly, and just keep with that nice natural pace of breath, even breath in, even breath out. And here in the belly, just start to notice your true self. This is that person, that being that you are sure that you are, that there is no doubt, any part of your body, that you are not that person. So this is that deeply true self. And maybe something comes up. Here's one thing that's really interesting about the heart and the gut, is it doesn't tend to speak to us in words. It tends to speak to us in colors, in feelings. It speaks to us in metaphor. So if something comes up when you're bringing focus down into the belly, don't try to make sense of it, but definitely don't ignore it. Maybe it's an image, maybe it's a couple words, just a sensation. You could even get a taste because the mouth is part of that enteric system. So after you kind of notice what's happening in the belly, bring your focus back into the heart space. Just re-tap in with that connection. Re-tap into the energy that's happening there in the heart. And once again, just take notice. Is there colors maybe that are happening? Is there sensations? Maybe there's sounds. Maybe there's just a texture or an energy within that space. There's no need to make it right, make it wrong. No need to evaluate it. Just take notice to it. And then finally, let the focus actually come up into the head brain. I know we're trying to quiet the head brain, but it needs its love too. And in that space in the head brain, you can give it the gratitude it deserves for being that part of you that does bring story. Because the stories are important. And when we honor the stories, when we honor the value of the stories, it can calm the head. And up here in this head space, you also have such brilliant creativity. So tap into that creative space in the head. You fill your awareness just inside the whole upper portion of the head. And just take notice that there's this beautiful creative space there that helps to balance the analytical part. that is also truly valuable to you. And just let the focus come back down into the heart. Just really kind of feel centered there. Just thank the body for all of that incredible intelligence it just shared with you. You can even feel out into your nervous system, into the skin. You should feel kind of like a tingle almost in your extremities, out into your fingers, out into your the tips of your toes, because your autonomic nervous system is part of this intelligence and it spreads it through the entire body. And as you start to really take notice of the power within your body and that energy within your body, just notice how much calmer the mind has become. Probably starting to feel a sense of clarity, a sense of wisdom within your body. And the mind starts to go, oh, okay, I can trust the rest of the body to be part of this process. So just bring your focus to the breath just for a few more moments. Just a few more breaths in, a few more breaths out. And as you start to bring your focus just back into the space around you, just type into the chat, what are some of the things that came up for you as you went through that? And that was just a quick 5-minute taste of what we call multiple brain integration. Awesome. Yeah, Miss Zombie Angel, you're saying, which I apologize and keep calling you that, but I don't know your actual name. I got all up into the feels during the breathing part of Yoga Zoom the other day. Tears just ran down my cheeks, but you couldn't pin down why. That is such an incredible example of when we start to tap into the body's intelligence. Because again, it doesn't come through a lot of times in sentences. It doesn't come through a lot of times in words. But if we take notice to it, we say, oh, wow, like some type of emotion just became present. Tears are that flag of just like, there's something present here. And the best thing to do in that moment is to just take notice to it and just be in awareness of it. And this is the great thing during a lot of times when with my coaching clients, as we go through this multiple brain integration, that's exactly what will happen. Just some tears will just kind of bubble up out of the eyes. And it's like, I'm not sad, not happy. Like, why did tears just come? And it's like, okay, well, just be present with it. What message does it have for you? What intelligence is it bringing to you? And when we get tuned in, that's what we can have, is this incredible wisdom that comes from the body. Twyla's saying, feeling super relaxed. Bree Bird, the belly, the chest, and the head, loving it. Jessica's saying, feeling zen. Feeling healing. Carla's saying a deep sense of calmness. Blue hearts from Elizabeth. So calm and relaxed. Yeah, John, I love that vibration through the body that comes when we start to tap in. Like, we really truly feel the fact that everything in our body is just energy when we tap in, right? Feeling centered. Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Yeah, Jessica, awesome. You're feeling that release, the body release some tears. And that might just be what it needed. It just needed that moment to say, oh man, there's something in here that just needed to come out through those tears. Yeah, and Tara, like you're mentioning, if these things get hurt, so there's a couple things that will block the intelligence from coming through, and that's hurt, that's previous experiences. There's incredible research into like heart transplant patients that have memories of the people that they had the heart transplanted from, or experiencing emotions that those people had felt before. Really incredible stuff. Energy always moving and shifting. Sarah's saying we create, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love this one. Yes, that you need to teach the brain to trust the other senses. Oh my gosh. So this is one of my favorite parts of embraining, is it gets the body to start to communicate with each other again. Because when these three things are working in harmony, that's where the beauty comes in. But we've been taught, Honor, we have been taught to not allow them to trust each other. We have been taught not to trust our emotions. We have been taught not to trust our gut instincts because there's maybe not logic behind it. And to the point, if we only trust our emotions, if we only trust our intuition, we are in the same place as if we only trust the logic. And that's why it's called integration. Yes. Awesome. So next step now, once we started to get some integration, once we start to get that connection, now it's now it's time to start to create the new map. Yes, Honor, so true. And those tears are beautiful because, again, this is truth coming forward for you. Yeah, I love this stuff. This is why I get so excited about it. Yeah, you see it, Sammy. So if you don't take the time to start to create the new map, like I said before, everything that's built up back here in that kind of primitive part of your brain that's just been patterned from previous education, it will come back forward because your body's natural process. So we just did this beautiful meditation, had some great discoveries. Now we have to create the new map because, again, if we let the old map stay in charge, which we know will happen, we will go back to the same emotions, we will go back to the same feelings, we will go back through the same actions as we always have. So we write a new map for the body now. So I'm just curious, as I say, writing a new map or creating new stories, what are some of the things, because I know there's a lot of people here in the chats that are really smart about this kind of stuff. What kind of things have you done in your life to write new stories, to create new maps for your day? Carlo, I know that you're into this. So just pop into the chat. What are some of the things that you do to tell this, to tell this, to tell this, what direction you want it to head? I'll throw one out. Journaling. Anyone out there a journaler? Great, Katie. You have a practice of not harboring negative thoughts, letting them flow out. That's awesome. And one of the great things that you can do with those negative thoughts is exactly that, kind of what we talked about, awareness and acceptance. When the negative thoughts come in, you just go, huh, okay, there's a negative thought. And you just let it flow on. One of the things they teach in meditation training is think of the mind as this river that's flowing through. And you get to watch the thoughts as they flow through your head, but you don't hang on to them. You don't grab them out of the water. You just watch them float on through like leaves in a stream. Yeah. Journaling, reading. Lindsay, you're saying reading, getting a coach. That's a good one. I would attest to that. Go for a walk. Yes. Carla's saying he sets an intention, brings into the meditation practice. Naima, what's up? Reminds herself that it's not all about me. Loves reading nonfiction and fiction to see storytelling. Absolutely. Hannah, proving the anxiety assumptions wrong. This is a really powerful practice that Hannah just brought up. So there's this really great process that you can do, and it's called, Is It True? And the second question is, what is more true? So when you start to feel the negativity pop up, when you start to hear that kind of story that we want to replace pop up, ask, okay, pause for a minute, accept, aware. Is this true? Is all this stuff that's flying through my head right now, is it actually true? Do I know it to be true? 90% of the time, the answer is going to be, no, of course it's not true. Then you say, okay, what's more true? If my head's saying, you know what, no one really cares about this stuff, Andrew, which, by the way, I'm totally getting vulnerable here and telling you this anyway, but I always have a hard time wondering if people are going to enjoy this kind of content. So, of course, right before the class, what starts going through my head? These are hairdressers. Like, they want to learn haircuts. They don't want to learn about, like, tapping into their heart center. They don't want to learn about tapping into their gut center. And I just stop and I say, Andrew, really, is this true? And I know from experience already, because we've been doing these kind of shows, that you guys love this kind of content. So then I say, okay, what's actually true here? What's more true than this little silly thought it's trying to protect you? That's the value of it. But what's more true? And so I can say, you know what? Look back at all the comments that we have every single week on this kind of program. Look back at your Instagram stories. Look back at your Instagram feed. People love this kind of content. And that just instantly puts me into the right space to move forward. So great little process that Anna brought up. Is it true? What is more true? Yes, exactly. That's a very Byron Katie, right? Is it true? Listening to the inner voice, Wendy. Yes, spending time listening. And by the way, my friend Carlo that's on here, tomorrow on Carlo Novoa's Instagram channel, we do Instagram Live. It's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. His Instagram name is Lit From Within. We're doing our talk on that kind of topic, which is how much are we listening compared to how much are we speaking? Are we in that place that we're being attentive and listening? So you guys should definitely tune into that. It'd be awesome. Great conversation. Travel is a way to reconnect, Patricia. Awesome. Thanks, Tara. Thank you, Twyla. Yeah, Katie Bell, stop that negative chatter. Just awesome. So yes, Carla, this is why we're all part of the tribe, for sure. So great, thank you, whoever's typing in on Sam Be a Professional there. With his Instagram, get your words out, Andrew. His Instagram is in the chat now for you guys too. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining us today. So journaling, mantras, and affirmations, these are important ways to start to set the train of thought in the right direction from the very first moment that you wake up. Please, guys, I'm going to beat this one to death because I believe truly that this is an important point. Don't pick this thing up first thing in the morning, because whatever shows up on that screen, you have to understand that you are waking from this really beautiful theta space where you are deep within your subconscious. And as you wake up, you are transferring into your waking state, which is a higher resonation. If you pick this up right as you wake up and the first thing you see is your crappy news for the day, guess what? You are imprinting into that deep subconscious. You are putting yourself into a space that probably is not the way you want to walk through your day. So please honor that first 15, 20 minutes at least of your day to wake up and really set that space for, okay, I'm in the body. Maybe you write out a few affirmations like, this is going to be a great day. This is a great day. I'm powerful. I'm loved. Whatever you need for that moment, for that day. But just, I'm going to keep beating this. Please don't pick this up as your first thing you do in that first 15, 20 minutes of your day. You know who I'm talking to right now. I love you guys. So also be conscious of what you speak. This is so important, and this is a big thing that I learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza. What you say during the day is what you will experience. If you keep repeating what is negative in your life, if you continue to repeat the same negative stories out of your mouth all day, and I know it's a hard habit to break, and I know it feels like, oh, I'm getting it off my chest. There's a difference between getting it off your chest and repeating and continuing to experience. Because every time you tell that story, your body has no idea if you are going through that experience or if you're just telling the story. It is going to chemically experience the story in the same way that it experienced it in the moment that it happened. Let me say that again, because this is so important. Each time you repeat the story of this horrible thing that you happen or this thing that you hate about your life, every time you repeat it, The body doesn't know any different. It will experience it as if it's actually happening again. Chemically within the body, you are going to re-experience it. So we really have to pay attention to the conversations that we're having. So have a place to let go of the story, to get it out of your head, to get it out of your mouth. That might be, at Palm to the School, we called it a bitch buddy. So maybe you have this one friend that you have an agreement with, that it's like, you're going to be my bitch buddy. I'm going to call you up once in a while. I'm going to get some things off my chest so I have a safe place to do that I'm not going to be judged. I'm going to let go of this story. But if we're repeating it to every client that sits in our chair that day, guess what's happening within the body? Re-experiencing it, reconfirming it, setting it into stone, driving it deeper into the map of the mind. So just take notice to what words you're saying. And a lot of times that journaling process, especially at the end of the day, is a great space to let go of that stuff. So let it out and then let it go. It's that stream through the mind. Watch it. Just the leaves are flowing through. Yes, Patricia, what you say makes the reality of your emotions. Bree's saying we live the words we speak. Absolutely. We don't want to keep reconfirming. Yeah, totally. Katie Bell, retelling a negative story drains me. You speak it into existence, Talisa. Absolutely. Awesome. All right, so here's what I would love to hear from you, because we talked about starting to become aware of the thoughts as the observer. You are not your thoughts. You are not the thoughts. You are the observer of the thoughts. So becoming the non-judgmental observer of the thoughts and accepting the fact that the mind is just playing its role within your daily life. Then we start to calm the mind. We do that very easily through the breath. Let the breath take care of the autonomic nervous system, get us back into balance and back into coherence. And in that space of coherence, now we can start to access the rest of the body's intelligence. And if you weren't with us during that time, if you rewind this video just a little bit, you're going to find that I take you through just a really quick, about 5 minutes, little meditation that'll get you to access that energy of the body. And then start to create the new map. Yes. So just curious, if you guys don't mind, before we close up, just type into the chat what's one or two things today that either were a cool discovery for you, or maybe just some dots that connected for you. I'd love to just hear it in the chats. So type that in, because I'll be able to go back and look through the chats. And it just helps me to understand what you guys are getting from the education here. But I want you to know that what you just experienced through this last hour, this is coaching. This is exactly what happens in a coaching situation. And so we just take people through becoming aware, getting into acceptance of what is happening within our lives. We start to reconfigure and explore some things, and then we start to take a new journey. And that's life coaching. So if you are interested in coaching, if you've been thinking about hiring a coach, I just want to put it out there. I'd love to be a coach for you. So if you head to my website, it's The Journeyest Life. Here, let me write that up so you can know how to spell it. It's the, and we'll put it in the chats too. The Journeyest, which is a made-up word. .com. So it's thejourneyestlife.com. I have a contact portion on that page. There's lots of more information on what I do as a coach, but you can contact me. I do a free exploration call for all of my clients, because it's just as important to me as it will be for you to make sure it's the right fit, and it's that my kind of coaching is even the right thing. My good friend Carlo Novoa, he's an incredible coach, very spiritual person. He's another option. There's a lot of great coaches out there. Just know that you don't have to go through this stuff alone. And again, going back to my own personal experience, I've studied so much, but guess what? I still have a coach. I still talk to my coach at least once every 2 weeks, if not weekly. And so having someone there on the sidelines to support you through the journey to me is just absolutely essential.